Good morning. This is not just a greeting. It signifies a hope that the beautiful morning will bring a smile on your face and happiness in your life. So I wish each one of you a very lovely and beautiful morning. And welcome you all to the IIEBM's induction program of 21st Batch Ignite 2020. I am Dr. Nidhi Srivastava, Associate Professor IIEBM, your host for the session. This session will be of an hour, where first 40 minutes will be knowledge sharing by the guest and rest 20 minutes will be question and answer. You can type your questions in the chat box, which will be addressed at the end of the session. It's not about ideas, but it's about making ideas happen. And who else can explain it better than our today's guest, Mr. Vidit Ghai. He will talk on intrapreneurship versus entrepreneurship. So let me introduce Mr. Vidit Ghai. Mr. Vidit has relished 7 years of corporate stint and is now engaged in creating, advising business ventures since 5 years. He is firm advocate of growth hacks and never say never ideology. He is a versatile man, and these days he enjoys neuroscience, saucer, script writing, idea hunting, and good laughs. He is physically located in Gurgaon, while his mind travels far across. Post-MBA, Mr. Vidit worked as a management consultant in Avalon Consulting, Mumbai. He strived hard to learn the tricks of the trade and was awarded double promotion within 2 years. He was employed in the firm for 3 years and then chose to move to Pune with an employment offer from American MNC Eaton. He enjoyed the stint and found another way to secure one more double promotion. He moved to Shanghai as a promotion package and quenched his thirst to understand the work culture across Asia in the process. He then resigned from his job in 2015 to pursue what he destined to do. 2014 onwards, his business venture explored segments ranging from ED tech, fintech, retail tech, storytelling short films. Some of his favorite biz ventures are One Rewards, loyalty management platform, Brews, coffee and kiosks, Schoolmate app, connecting parents and school, Fabfira, e-commerce for Indian ethnic products, Mellow Diaper Pipers, Become Self-Aware, Culture Nama, Back to Basics of Learning, First Pay, Product Financing, Affluent Club, Micro Investment, and Ecom Studios short films. So without taking much time, let us start this session. And like the IIEBM, we say, let knowledge prevail. Over to you, Mr. Vidit. Mr. Vidit, can you hear me?
Hello, Nidhi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you now.
First of all, thanks a lot for the kind words that you used for describing me. I almost felt like a man of the match award on a cricket pitch. That's very generous of you.
Right.
So it's okay. We can start with the presentation. I think most of the people have joined in by now.
Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Assalamu Alaikum. This is a topic that is very close to my heart because I have had a journey which was eventful in me exploring both these sides of the story. I am very sure at your stage in the kind of life phase that you are in, you would be exploring both the options, and that's where I wanted to put a poll as well in my curious mind to understand which of these you would like to know more about, being an entrepreneur or being an intrapreneur. So the poll is open right now. We'll close it in another 2 minutes if that's okay with you. So whoever has not taken the poll, please go ahead and take the poll so that we get a clear understanding of what is your area of interest. I will take the liberty to move on to the next slide and start with what I have to tell you. Let's first start with explaining or defining these two terms. I think entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs are the glamorous side right now. It's in fashion these days to be an entrepreneur, and there are a lot of articles, news, and essays to read about them. But I think the simplest way to describe them is going by the dictionary, that it is a person who sets up a business. As simple as that. Mostly these entrepreneurs take financial risks in terms of not having prior support to setting up that business. So in my definition, I would not define an entrepreneur with someone who's got the basics, who's got the basic resources to set this up. I would call an entrepreneur who starts with negligible or nil resources and then builds something up. It's like building a house from the scratch. It is not about renovating a house. Renovating a house would be a different league of maybe a business tycoon, or maybe calling it just a different way of setting up. But entrepreneurship is more about starting it from the scratch. The term that I really like is becoming an entrepreneur, because nobody talks about it. I don't know how many of you would actually know the chief marketing officer of Flipkart, or maybe the chief operating officer of Facebook, because these are entrepreneurs who do not get talked about a lot. And what I see from the poll right now, there are 6% of the total population that has submitted their votes interested to know about entrepreneur. And there's an obvious reason for that, because it's not a glorious profile. Having said that, it is a very interesting profile where you actually make the company work. So it's very important for each one of us to understand and acknowledge the role of an entrepreneur amongst all the startups, because without them, the startups won't work. And obviously, the bigger companies, the larger fishes, they obviously need entrepreneurs as well. They need people to drive their projects. So as we go through in this set of slides, I will try to give you some glimpse of how do we define an entrepreneur, how do we define an entrepreneur, how to become an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, what are the subtle qualities of these kind of people, and what can we learn in the process to make sure that we become either a good entrepreneur or a good entrepreneur. I'm going to end the poll now so that we have a clear understanding of where we are going. I do understand that a lot of you want to know about entrepreneur as compared to people who want to know about intrapreneur. But I hope as we go through the presentation, by the end of it, your interest in being an entrepreneur will be much larger as compared to being an entrepreneur. Let's see how it goes. Now let's use the chat box, and I really want to understand from your perspective, why would you want to know about these two terms? What really made you sign up to this webinar or register for this? What is your curiosity level? So if you can use your chat box, and maybe Nidhi can help me call out what kind of reactions you guys have on why do you want to know about this. Yes, so one of you have nicely pointed out that the future future is going to be one of them. Just to give you another clarity, these are not the only two possibilities. There are multiple possibilities. You can be a good manager, you can be a good subordinate, you can be a good team player. there are different roles in all industries and all companies. These are the two roles that I am most close to, and I'll also tell you why I like these two roles, but I want to understand your perspective as well. Yes, it definitely helps in the family business. So you have rightly pointed out. I like the way somebody has put it, that it's helps for a better future and career success. Very nicely put. Yes. I think intrapreneurship, this term is new, so I'll give you more details on this as well. I like the fact that somebody has written to remove the fear of starting a business only. Yes, there's a fear with starting a business. I understand that. And I'll try and cover that in the coming slide as well, on how not to be afraid about it. It teaches us to cultivate new skills and think out of the box. Yes, to a certain extent, yes. It creates that attitude where you want to think out of the box, where you want to do new things. I like this very direct answer somebody has given, that how to start a career as entrepreneur or entrepreneur. Fantastic. But I am looking for why. Why would you want to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur? Yes, it will help you start your business or career once you understand the nuances and the subtle qualities. Uh, Taking it forward, I'll tell you why I think it is very important for you to know about these two terms. While we go to our work schedule, and it could be your office, your business, or somebody else's office, one of the key or the most important factor that drives our motivation is recognition. If you understand what being an entrepreneur is, or what being an entrepreneur is, you will get this. So this is primarily to get admiration, recognition, praise, basically to become a star in your ecosystem. Once you know what are the real requirements for being an entrepreneur, or the real requirements for being an entrepreneur, that's where, when you understand the rules of the games, then you get a lot of praise, a lot of adulation, a lot of appreciation from all your colleagues. So that's why I think it's very important for you guys to understand this. I wish somebody told me this when I was doing my MBA. I was a bit aware of the term entrepreneur. I had no clue about entrepreneur. I learned it along my journey, and suddenly I realized that these terms, if I would have known them earlier, I would have gone exactly the way it required me to go. Luckily, I learned through the process, and now I'm giving you these details just to help you, so that in case, whichever side you take, you want to become an entrepreneur or entrepreneur, once you know the qualities needed for it, or the things that are similar to these two roles, you will be able to adapt to them and hopefully implement them. And I can assure you that the success, or the adulation, or the recognition, or the appreciation will come by itself. You would not have to work hard for it. Just become one of these, and I'll assure you that you will get all the possible praise, specifically in your work environment across. So going to the next slide, a bigger question is, why should you listen to me? Nidhi was too kind to describe my journey, which was a mix of ups and downs. I did my BTech and MBA with the purpose of joining a job. I got placed in a consulting firm, and within the first year, I realized that I have to become an entrepreneur. I was not aware of the term, but I knew what was I supposed to do. I was very clear in my mind that I will not satisfy myself with a single promotion. If everybody was getting promoted to one level, I wanted to jump to the second level. And that's what drove me to understand more about this term and the possibilities. In my second job in Eton, again, I went with the same ideology that I would not settle for something which is average. I have to become the best possible version of myself and prove it to others that I can get their projects done. I have to become the favorite of my company's top management. Then I took a nice U-turn at one point of time and I realized that I really like to have my own setup. I felt I have done my intrapreneurship pretty decently, and it's time for me to take the entrepreneurship bug. I failed in some cases, I succeeded in some cases, but over this span of about 13, 14 years, I have gained pretty decent learnings to talk about this and hopefully add some value to you. I will also try to share some databases for research. I think the easiest database is your mind, but I will go to next level details. But before we start playing this game, let me be very clear on what are the rules of this game for the next 1 hour. I would really want you guys to ask questions. I don't care if you feel that they are basic. I don't care if you feel they are dumb or if you feel you are a genius. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn to ask questions. If you want to be an intrapreneur, you have to learn to ask questions. Curiosity will take you to next level. So start developing that habit if you don't have one. That is the first step to remove fear. It becomes very difficult to stand in a crowd and ask a question. So if you adapt that habit or make it a practice for yourself, and let's start with today at least, this chat box should not stop at any point of time, because there are so many potential intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs in this conversation right now. So if you are asking questions, you are on the right track. I will try to give you polls like I did in the beginning. Please answer that, because that will help you start forming an opinion. I saw a lot of people went for both as an option, and it was a trick actually. You have to learn, if you want to be either of them, being an entrepreneur or intrapreneur, you have to learn to have your own opinions. If you want the best of both worlds, you might not reach somewhere very fast. So one key to success that I've learned in time is to participate, have opinions, understand black or white. Gray is the easy part to go, but you should be able to choose your perspective and think in terms of having specific opinions or likings or dislikings. It's very important for being an entrepreneur or intrapreneur, and I'll tell you how in the coming slides. The third, which is the most important aspect of either of these, I see the questions have stopped. So either you're busy reading the slides or you're still thinking whether your question is too dumb or too genius. Coming back to what I was saying, so the third rule of the game is, if you focus on this, I want you to read the slide bottoms up, because I want you to learn how to see things differently. So develop your mindset to see things differently. And let's start today. So each of my slides will have the headline here, and the content will go like this. So you will benefit if you read this portion first, the bottommost, and then this. Try this. Some might find it difficult, some might find it very confusing, but I can assure you that it will help you start the habit of seeing things differently, of realizing that there are no right and wrongs. They are just different ways of seeing, they are just different perspectives. For those who have understood what I'm trying to say here, can put a yes on the chat box. I'll wait for 30 seconds. So I've got about 10 odd, and it's going on. So at least 10 yes I have got. I would request to these guys, then don't hesitate from asking questions whenever you have across. We'll also take them at the end. So let's talk about what are the perspectives of an intrapreneur and entrepreneur. See, an entrepreneur is a person who sets up a business. So their perspective is very clear. They understand that they have the ability to create a vision. Once you understand that as a person, you are good at creating vision, you have the first checkbox of you being of an entrepreneur mindset. Now, when I say vision, basically a vision is any prediction for the next 5 years, and you can start testing it from today. So you can have a vision for 2025 based on what is happening right now, or 2023 based on what is happening right now. If it's a habit for you to seek more clarity on future or to try and predict future, then you can decide, then you can actually make a good understanding that you are of an entrepreneur mindset. So one of the key things as a personality, as a perspective that a entrepreneur should have is their ability to create a vision. The second thing that is very important is your ability to take risk. And we get to learn through it across our education system. So we take risk when we don't submit a home assignment when we are in school. We take risk when we possibly bunk a school class. We take risk when we stand up in the class to debate the best student of the class. Or we take a risk when we go to the teacher and say that I want to learn more about this topic. So your ability, you can judge yourself whether you're fitting on entrepreneur or intrapreneur. But I'm trying to tell you what are the typical traits of an entrepreneur here. So if you believe that you are a person who has taken some risk in your life, then you can definitely say that you are of an entrepreneur quality. But if you have not taken risk till now and you want to become an entrepreneur, try and learn how to take calculated risks, and you will get a lot of opportunities in your MBA, the rest of the course that you have left, and in your coming life. There are small risks that we take on a daily basis. You have to start measuring yourself how effectively or efficiently you're taking those risks. So if that becomes your habit, you are in the entrepreneurship mindset or the mold. And the third one, which is I think differentiates a good entrepreneur and an okay entrepreneur, is your capability to ideate. You have to think differently. You have to train yourself to think differently. I am pushing you guys to think differently by giving you a headline at the bottom. So if you talk about one thing that distinguishes entrepreneurship as a discipline, I think it's not one, is these three things which are really unique, which are not found in managers, which are not found in even innovators, scientists. I'll give you a comparison. Let's say an entrepreneur versus a scientist. A scientist might have a vision. He also might have the ability to ideate, but the ability to take risk might be missing in him. So he'll need maybe a funding company or a company top management to give a green signal to take the risk or not. I have a very interesting question that sometimes we don't take risk because we fear failures and we fail trying something new. How to cope? So I'll tell you how to cope. Become an intrapreneur. Becoming an entrepreneur really helps you develop the habits of an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur teaches you how to become a better entrepreneur. So entrepreneur is a person who might be working in a company, but they know the risk is not on them. The risk is on the company. So they learn the tricks of the game by understanding that they don't have any financial risk on the product failing or not. Because God forbid, if the product fails, they can still move on to the next company. They will get hired at some salary plus minus 10-15% either ways, but the opportunity is not going to be lost because people are recruiting you for your intellect. I have an interesting question that what is the one thing that makes a difference between these two terms except mindset and risk? I think what really makes these two terms different is the ability to create a vision. I'll also talk about entrepreneur and then we can come back to these questions, because entrepreneur is a person who is working with a larger set of ecosystem, a person who is reporting to somebody, a person who has got a mentor to guide. So basically entrepreneur is, if I give you an easier example, it's like you going on a travel trip to Mahabaleshwar with your GPS on. So then you are an entrepreneur because you have support system on guiding you which route to take. Versus if you are somebody who is going to Mahabaleshwar without your GPS on for the first time and you have no clue how to go around there, then you are more of an entrepreneur tribe. The key aspects of being an entrepreneur is your ability to rise to challenges. So like I gave you the example of going to Mahabaleshwar with your GPS on. If you are entrepreneur enough, at certain point of times you might shut down or put your GPS on off because you know the next 40 kilometers are a straight drive. So entrepreneurs basically love challenges. They are the people who are ready to, if you are in a class, if you see that a teacher comes in and asks that, okay, we have an annual function coming up and I need some support to go out and let's say get me some sponsors. So the people who are okay to raise their hands, they like those challenges because they know that the credibility at stake is not as much. It's still a job being assigned to them and they can get it done. I think one thing which is very important for being an entrepreneur is your ability to give opinions, your ability to communicate, because entrepreneurs work in an ecosystem. They work with other people around. They have to influence people around. So a simplistic example of being an entrepreneur is when somebody is able to influence their team, their managers, their subordinates to make sure that product leads, as well as share their opinions, express themselves or communicate, they are pretty good at being entrepreneur. So even if you have a set of friends or your gang, and if you find that you are able to express your opinions, influence at that time, or at least have an opinion that, okay, which movie should you watch out of the 3 movies available, then you are an entrepreneur. And if you want to go for a movie and you then call people in that I want to go for this movie and I need 5 more guys to join in, then you are an entrepreneur. Does the movie example resonate with you? Does it make sense? A yes would help if somebody is typing. So let me simplify it once again for you guys. Let's go for so I have a small poll for you. You have to find the entrepreneur of these 2 fictional characters. Let's assume Fauger is a guy who plays tennis, is one of the world leader in tennis championship. And let's see is another guy who plays football and he's pretty good at his skills. Which one would you call entrepreneur? You have about one and a half minute to give your answer. Think about it. Oh, right now 50-50. Okay. I hope there are some sports lover here and can relate to these caricatures. Okay, so I'll end the poll now. If everybody is done, I hope. So you can see we have about 62% people saying it's Fauger, 37% people saying it's Lessie. See, the entrepreneur in this scenario is Fauger Redder. And the reason for that is the whole game depends on him. He definitely has a support staff, a coaching staff, but in the ground, he's all alone. It is based on his shots, his moves on that specific day that is going to win the match or lose the match. He will definitely have his own set of people, his massage guy, his trainer, his coach, his set of towel boys, but at the end, the game is going to be played by him. Whereas if you talk about Lessie, he's a football player, which is more of a team game. So he is dependent on the pass coming from somebody else. He is dependent on the move being made by somebody else. Or he can still make the move, but it might need to be finished by somebody else. Or he would need a goalkeeper to save the goals as well. So that's how we can possibly differentiate between these two roles. If you want to become an entrepreneur, understand that you need to be a team player. You need to understand that you need to rise to challenges. You need to adapt and learn. It is a very important quality because a team would keep changing. So the forward player of Leslie's team might change in the next 3 years. That should not change the game of Leslie, and he should be able to adapt very quickly. So that's why it is very important to understand that whether you fall into the category of Leslie at this point of time, or you call yourself the Forger Redderer, and based on that you make your next move. So if you believe you're already in a situation where you can handle everything all alone, you come from a set of support system that will guide you at time to time, you are good to go and become an entrepreneur. Whereas if you feel that currently you're in a situation where you need goalkeepers, where you need forwards, or the game that you're playing in, there are certain industries that are not very good for entrepreneurship or not ready for entrepreneurship right now. So if you believe you want to work in such industries, it is not a bad idea to become a star like Leslie and carry on with the entrepreneur medal. Develop your skills, understand how to take risk in future, understand how to create vision while learning on your job, and then become an entrepreneur. Any specific queries regarding this example? I have a very interesting question that can Redderer perform same without a team like staff and all? So what happens in a case of entrepreneur is your primary responsibility is to find entrepreneurs and recruit them in your team. So if you believe you have the qualities of an entrepreneur, if you realize I talked about 3 things: create a vision, take risk, ideate. If you have these qualities, then you have to make a team of entrepreneurs. So for Roger Federer, I can assure you, he's got a team or staff which are full of entrepreneurs. They are the best in their business. Yes, Leslie can be a leader. Why not? But still, he is being managed by a club. He is being managed by a country. So he's got a tie to somebody else. He's got a chain which goes up to somebody else. So while being an entrepreneur, you can be a leader as well. You can be the project lead. You can be the program leader. You can be the leader of a country. But you will still report to somebody, let's say at a world level. So what differentiates in this case of a Leslie or a Redderer is Redderer can actually go and take his own decisions when he wants to on let's say a play field also, whereas Leslie has certain people to answer to and has got a responsibility, and thus he's got lesser risk. Leslie is actually not very troubled with the idea of recruiting new forwards or defense. His club would be. Leslie would not have that much of a say that these people I want for sure. His club might have that say. So that's where the difference between Leslie as an entrepreneur and Redder as a possible entrepreneur. I have a question which says that if a person possesses all the entrepreneur qualities but her opinions are rejected, she will be called an entrepreneur? Okay. So the answer lies somewhere on this. It's a 1-0 game. So an entrepreneur needs to find people who are entrepreneurial in their mindset. So if you believe that you are an entrepreneur, then you have to find somebody who listens to you. So it could be your job 1, job 2. If it could be a project manager 1 in your team or project manager 2. So there are multiple people that you are working with. You have to find the person who's got entrepreneur mindset, and then they will encourage you. So the rejection or the ideas not being fulfilled is just one of the scenarios. You have to create another scenario. You have to find people who are more encouraging for ideas. And there are obviously millions of companies across, and small groups and small teams across. So there's no dearth of people who are. So it's like a Vikram Betal kind of situation where every entrepreneurs need intrapreneurs to succeed. So if I'm a business head, I need more intrapreneurs, and it's on my ability to find those intrapreneurs that I will succeed. Same applies for entrepreneurs. So if I'm working as let's say a manager, I need to make sure that I get into the right profile and find a good mentor or leader. So even in a company, there are leaders such as CEO, CFO, Chief Strategy Officer, Chief HR. You need to find which of these actually have that entrepreneur mindset and attach yourself with them, because then they will encourage you all the more. I'll move to a quick slide which will also talk about the same thing, and let's have a quick poll here as well, just to take an understanding whether you understand now that is can possibly an entrepreneur. If you understand this, I think you would have got what I was trying to. Okay, you have your poll ready. See if you can answer this. Oh, sorry. I hope you guys can see the poll. Can you identify the entrepreneur in this? I'll end the poll now. I think it's pretty. I'm happy to see that it's pretty clear in this case that the fictional character Jiru seems to be the entrepreneur because he was being hired by Thokar Singh. While one interesting thing to note here is that in the movie, if you see the movies from the specific village perspective, so in the movie you might see that Jiru was the hero of the movie or the star. But if you look at a larger picture, if you look at, let's say, a district level, or let's say at a city level, or the whole state level, in fact, other villages would find Thokar Singh as the star or the hero because they would think that he was able to get these two guys that nobody else was able to get. So I think this really helps. I'm happy that I think most of you have got reasonable clarity on what are the potential differences, and now that you know the differences, or now that you know the characteristic, you can have your own theories on which one you want to be or which one you are more closer to. There's no right or wrong here. You just need to figure out which are the characteristics of these two that you have right now, so that your next 3 years can be focused on developing on becoming either of these. If you feel you are more towards the entrepreneur mindset, go towards that. If you feel that you are currently on the entrepreneur mindset, it's a fantastic path to go. Go with a very specific focus of joining a company and make sure that you become the entrepreneur there, and you will shine like a star. I can promise you that. Nidhi, is there a good time to take question answers?
Yes, we can start taking question answers now.
So I'll give you the lead, Nidhi. You can pick out the questions and I'll try and help.
Yeah. So the first question is 70% of India's pharma industry is dependent on imports of China. So do you think we have intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship opportunities in this sector?
Being an entrepreneur, I've always believed that there are opportunities everywhere in each sector. It is not based on time. I'll give you a simplest example that when iPhone was launched, we already had uh, touch screens. If you remember, we had those uh, Sony P10 and these touch screens that used to come with a stylus. And then Mr. Steve Jobs came in. He realized that he can better it to the next level and you can just use your finger. So it is not based on situation. It is not based on what consumer wants. It is not based on demand and supply. Entrepreneurship is more about finding an opportunity and having the vision and then creating it. If you are dependent on demand and supply, you are not thinking like an entrepreneur. You are more probably thinking like an entrepreneur. So I generally rule out demand and supply or market situations to classify an opportunity, because anything that you do better, like for example, before Ola and Uber came, the taxis were still available. It was not based on demand. It was just a better service provider that found the lead.
That's right. That's right. Okay, my next question is, we are improving on ease of doing business index.
Yes, we are definitely improving. I really appreciate the fact that current government has gone very digital. They have created the process which are quite seamless and that works across the functions of government. So it really helps. Nowadays, it is much easier to file your income taxes or register a new company. So yes, I think the digital push has really helped a lot.
Right.
But these are very small obstacles. You should not be worried about these in terms of ease of doing business. See, businesses were happening even in 1950s and are happening right now also. These are good push motivation factors, but in the end you have to self-motivate yourself. But yes, if you talk about history versus now, yes, the current government is definitely giving a digital push, and that's very encouraging. It makes it slightly easier for us to get the paperwork done. The rest is all about our mind and the ideation part. That is still dependent on us.
That's right. Okay. See, these are the freshers. So the biggest challenge that they face is, identifying the agencies for funding, or how do they approach to these funding agencies. So would you like to highlight certain tips on that?
Okay. Since you guys are fresher, I'll give you a brief on to what a typical startup journey is like. See, the ideal way of going around this is what is called as a proof of concept. So if you develop something, ideally it should not be the best version of the product. It should be the working version of the product. You should launch it in the market and have your proof of concept ready. Now, proof of concept means that there's something was launched in the market. It got certain customers which were paying to you, which were ready to pay for it. Once you have that level of traction of your product being sold in the market, then definitely you will get inbound inquiries, or you can reach out to a lot of VCs or funding companies. But the basic requirement for that is a proof of concept. So work on that part as a fresher. Launch something in the market, test it out, develop it. Don't make it the best product, but make it a working product and you will have takers.
Right. Okay. Lot of questions are about you, about your journey. So many of these students want to know that how did you decide? Like, you were doing really well in your job. You got double promotion twice. So you were doing really good in your job. So how did you decided to go for starting up your own venture?
So the three qualities that I talk about entrepreneurs is create vision. It is about taking risk and ideating. So while I was being this entrepreneur, I realized I started trusting my theories of creating visions. I started testing whether I could predict the next 2 years, or whether I could predict that this is what my boss will think, or whether I could predict that this is how the market will behave after 6 months. That gave me confidence that maybe I can create a vision. So I was testing this in the first 7 years of my job life. While working, I was also having my own theories on this product will work, this product won't work. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not work. So I failed also in creating a vision, but I was very persistent of developing the habit of creating a vision. I was also, being an entrepreneur, I was able to think differently because I found some very interesting managers or leaders who I felt had a better entrepreneur qualities. So I was able to learn from them the process of ideation, how to think out of the box, how to think new things, what is out of the box, can you read the slide upside down, these kind of stuff. So I experimented. But the biggest thing that kind of pushed me is when I realized that I was in Shanghai for 2 years for my last stint for Eaton. And that's where I reached a country where I was not knowing anybody and food was not very favorable. Luckily, I was non-vegetarian, so I could eat, but it was still, the smell is very strong. So I made it a point that if I survive these 2 years, then I would have understood that I am able to take calculated risks. So those 2 years were a very good learning for me to challenge myself in taking risks. So I would go to places where I could not talk to anybody because there was language barrier. One day I will explore a completely new area where nobody would know me, and you cannot even talk to those guys, so you cannot find your way back by talking. And their sign language is also different. So it's not that you can just do this or this. They have a different sign language. I was persistent on trying to understand whether I can take these risks or not. Do I have the courage? So I tested myself out. When I realized that yes, Vidit, you are taking decent amount of risk, and 8 out of 10 risks are working through. You would fail in some, so that's fine. So when I realized that I can take risk, I can create a vision, and I was pretty sure that I was decent at ideating, I realized that maybe I can now have a second inning and try something else with my life. I think that was a risk again, but yes, I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so was there any time when you felt, terribly bad about the things you started, or maybe you encountered with a failure wherein you thought, okay, I took a wrong decision and I shouldn't have done this? So was there any point of time when you felt this?
So when I started entrepreneurship, I realized that I need to create a vision. The vision was for 5 years down the lane. So every time there was a thought, I never felt terribly bad, maybe because I'm an optimistic person, but whenever there was a feeling of doubt, I would always remind myself of the vision. And since the vision is 5 years away, you always have time to cover up. So vision really helped me, making sure that I stay on track and not lose my track.
Right. Okay, so one last question. It's again asked by a student. She's asking is, if given a chance, what one advice you will give to your 22-year-old self? 22-year-old Vidit. Yeah.
I still feel like 22, don't go by my looks, I guess. But to be honest, I have not regretted anything in my life. Advice I would have given, as I said, that I was not aware of the term entrepreneur. Maybe it was in my MBA course and I skipped that chapter. So I had to figure it out. Nobody told me that it is possible that you can go to a company and actually become a star or get recognition or admiration. So there was no formula that I had at that point of time. If I would have, or somebody, or mentor or a guide would have told me that it's not necessary to become a Bill Gates, it's not necessary to become a Steve Jobs, you can become somebody else who is actually a supporter of these guys and be very good at it and find satisfaction and praise in that as well. So once that's why I relate myself to those examples of footballers, because they are not alone, they have a team, but still you need to become the Ronaldo or the Messi or the star or the Dhoni or the Kohli of the team. So once I realized that there's a possibility of becoming a star in a team of full of stars, that's when I really started enjoying my job. that's when I realized that there was a good challenge worth focusing on. So if somebody would have told me that there's this kind of challenge coming ahead, I would have really liked it. But I really enjoyed the journey otherwise also. It was really fun. So there's no regrets as such.
Great. Well, Vidit, thank you so much for taking time out and addressing the batch. It was really a wonderful session. I could see the chat box was not at rest even for a second. It was very live and very interactive. Students have enjoyed. I can still see the comments coming here. So thank you so much for
Thank you so
this
much.
wonderful
Thanks
session.
to everyone who
Thank you.
participated in that. Due apologies if I could not take all your questions. I would have really liked to, but since time keeps moving fast. But I hope I have given you some clarity. You have a lot of guides and a lot of mentors. Please reach out and they'll give you much more on this. Thanks a lot.